peak out, and you cannot just shut it off.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, the ranking member. I'm one of those that believes we still need permitting reform. Ms. Honoran, let me start with you, and I want to express my appreciation for ELCON's endorsement and support of one of my bills. It's the Expediting Generator Interconnection Procedures Act, GIPA for short. I was pleased to see your testimony call on Congress to consider this legislation as soon as possible, really in order to ease what we are talking about, this interconnection backlogs, enhance grid reliability, and lower energy costs. As we have all been talking about and are aware, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab recently determined there were over 2,600 gigawatts of generation and storage pending in U.S. interconnected queues at the end of 2023. Ms. Honoran, can you talk a little bit about why expanding on some of the ways that this legislation works to alleviate the bottlenecks, and it will have a positive impact on energy development and grid resiliency?
Great. Thank you for the question, Senator. And yes, ELCON was a supporter of that proposed bill. We are at a point where we need, again, as my testimony stated, all of the above resources. We have a lot of resources that are hung up in the interconnection queue that are ready to put steel in the ground and start producing power. And unfortunately, due to regulatory constructs at the markets, these are being held up through red tape and restudies. And so we really need to find a way to standardize and perhaps automate some of these study processes so that we can do it quickly and quicker and get these resources on the grid. FERC has done some work with their Order 2023, but we still need to go further, and it's just the first step. Thank you.
And while I have you, because you mentioned this, and this is always a concern of mine, because I think as we build out our portfolio around energy, including clean energy, we need to ensure we have a workforce. And you talked a little bit about it. So when considering the severity of literally growing and moving forward in clean energy and all of these projects, what do we need to be thinking about for that workforce? Is it there? Or should we be putting more investments, and what type of investments in the workforce?
Yes, absolutely. Coming from the utility side before I joined the consumer side, that was something we heard from the utilities quite a bit, that the workers to come, even managing our electric system, the same for manufacturing. Trade schools, things like that have, declined. There was a more prominent focus on, say, liberal arts education. We moved away from sort of the trade education that we need. We need to encourage more workers to look at some of these new and emerging jobs. We need to make sure that they're well paid. We need to make sure that they can exist in this society and can prosper. And so we really need to be investing in our future workforce, and we need to start doing that now.
Thank you. Mr. Folk, are you familiar with advanced reconductoring? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because there's an opportunity, as we're talking about building out the grid and transmission, the technology is also going to help us with that capacity. Isn't that correct? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a grid-enhancing technology. We actually have just used it a couple of years ago down in South Texas, where we used the advanced conductor technology to and a 330-mile transmission line of 345 kV. And to your point, it increased capability by about 40%. I would caution, though, that you do have to find specific applications in specific regions and a lot of other technical things before it can produce those sorts of results that I mentioned. But we've been a very big proponent of grid-enhancing technologies, making sure that they also have a cost-benefit, that favorably score out on that. And when they do, we're all in.
Are other countries already using this type of technology, advanced conductoring?
Or other utilities? Countries? I believe so, but I'd have to check with my team to see how extensively they are.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And now we have Senator Cassidy.